Okay, let's unpack this. We usually dig into histories or technical reports, timelines, but this time, the source material is basically telling us that reality itself is
Yeah. Yeah,
negotiable.
it really is. I mean, today we're diving into a stack of documents that feels less like a filing cabinet and more like a library that someone built inside a glitch in the Matrix.
That's a perfect way to put it. We're looking at everything. We've got novelistic meta-commentary, grim military reports.
Right, about weaponizing human faith, of all things.
Exactly. And the thing that ties it all together is the chaotic timeline of two different incarnations of the same time traveler. And they're operating at the same time without even knowing it to stop a manufactured pocket dimension from just collapsing entirely.
It's a huge undertaking. So our mission today is to chart this confluence of events. It all centers on this American city called Lychburg.
Lychburg, a place that exists outside of normal space and time.
Yeah, it's a temporal fracture. And it was triggered by this chilling U.S. government initiative, the Golgotha Project.
Which is just, I mean, they weren't just researching psychic powers or something. They were trying to harness deep occult forces, weaponize belief itself.
And we have to track it all across these different timelines. You've got the second Doctor with Victoria and Jamie, and they're navigating the first fractured reality of Lychburg.
And then you have the fourth Doctor and Romana dealing with all the fallout, the cross-dimensional chaos back in London.
It's a study in controlled chaos that became catastrophically uncontrolled.
So let's start at the beginning, or maybe the beginning of the end, the moment of arrival, the initial fracture. The second Doctor, in his usual shaggy, earnest way, he lands the TARDIS in Lychburg. At first glance, it just looks like an American city, maybe stuck in, 1968?
Right, but the first thing the companions notice is just the atmosphere. There's this pea super fog. It's thick, sulfurous, almost London-like, just hanging over everything.
So they immediately look for somewhere to go, and they find a place called the Fitzroy Tavern.
And that's the first contradiction right there. It's got the battered hardwood, the polished beer engines. It feels like a quintessential English pub.
But it's sitting in the middle of a totally American city.
And the place is meant to feel historic. The source describes it as a one-time haunt of, real genius.
But
now it's just second-raters, backstreet journalists, and latchkey so-called novelists.
Yeah, exactly. And there's this loud, boisterous noise. But Victoria immediately picks up on this edge of desperation under it all.
The performance.
It's a total performance. And the details just reinforce that feeling of rot. Behind the bar, you've got rows of dusty, exotic bottles, all these liquors and gins that obviously haven't been touched in decades.
And the only thing you can actually buy is beer.
Right. And it's described as dark, cloudy, warm, and it has this layer of scum-like froth on top.
Ugh.
It just tells you the supply chain is fundamentally broken. Or maybe it's just running on inertia. They have the signifiers of a working bar, the bottles, the taps, but none of the actual substance. And that atmosphere, that decay just under the surface, it perfectly mirrors the city itself. The Doctor picks up on it right away. He sees that Lychburg is this temporal mishmash.
It just refuses to stick to one single time period.
Yeah, he sees cars from the 50s and 60s parked right outside a huge plate glass shopping mall that looks like it's from the 90s.
And you've got ice truck drivers, a real mid-century relic, walking around with microwave burritos and talking on mobile phones.
It's just visual noise. It's like someone threw all the pieces of a town into a box, shook it up, and dumped it out.
And the Doctor's insight is the key. He says these objects lack proper temporal context.
They're just there.
They're there because the system says a town needs a car here, a mall there, not because they actually followed a linear history to get there.
Which leads to this staggering realization about the discontinuity. Victoria asks the obvious question, right? Why don't people notice they can't leave? Why aren't they trying to get out?
And the Doctor's answer is just bone-chilling. They don't notice because, for them, travel outside Lychburg is a basic impossibility.
It's not even a thought they can have.
To even think about it is madness, plain and simple. The physics of their own world literally conspires against the thought.
So if the world is completely isolated, how do they eat? I mean, no farms, no supply lines. Where does the food come from?
And this is where it gets really strange. This is the radical, subjective reality of Lychburg. The Doctor just dismisses the whole idea of an original source.
He says if you order a meal, the food shows up because the waiter brought it.
And the waiter got it from the chef, who got it from the market. The chain of transaction is the reality. There's nothing before that.
Wow.
The system just believes the supply chain should work, so it does. It's a self-sustaining loop of assumed cause and effect.
So it's not following the laws of thermodynamics or quantum physics?
No, nothing. It operates on its own internal laws. It doesn't need a Big Bang or a nab gib, as the source puts it.
Which reveals the town's true, horrifying purpose.
Exactly. If the world is this closed, self-referring, infinitely recycling machine, the doctor concludes the whole town is just a killing bottle, or more like a larder.
A pantry.
A pantry for something. Something abstract that needs a very specific kind of food that this whole perpetual motion machine of belief is designed to provide.
Which, I mean, that's the question for you, the listener, right?
Yeah.
If your actions are based on a reality that only exists because you believe it does, how much free will do you actually have? It's that chilling idea that they're trapped inside an engine designed to feed something. That takes us straight into the manufactured reality of Lychburg.
Right. This internal logic means that the laws of cause and effect in Lychburg are constantly being redefined, often instantaneously, by whatever is controlling it.
And Victoria's observation is so important here. She sees that the townspeople's act, their delusion, is so complete that to them it was natural and real.
They're not just pretending to live a normal life. Within the rules they've been given, they are living a normal life.
She figures out that the lies are being told by someone or something else. It's an external force writing the script for them.
And we see that force manifest in the most horrifying way through the breakdown of individual people.
Yeah, we see reality just erode through this character, Norman Manley.
He's on a date at the Drive-O-Rama, which is like the perfect slice of manufactured Americana, with his girlfriend, Myra Monroe.
And then suddenly, Myra's voice just shifts.
It becomes cold, detached, almost like a scientific narrator is speaking through her, and it's analyzing Norman's own physiological state.
She says his erratic thought processes are a sign that he's returning to complexity. He's starting to remember the outside world.
He's applying rational, external physics to this internal reality, and he is becoming too complicated for the system to handle.
And then she, or it, gives the diagnosis.
Yeah. The signifiers of the world are collapsing, deconstructing under an atypical and excessive sense of psychic introspection. Clearly, it has been infected by the forces of discontinuity.
And the moment she says that word, discontinuity, her limbs just, they assume these postures that had no humanity about them. She's not just Myra anymore.
She's a mouthpiece for the structure itself.
And that structure is the mind, or continuity, this abstract entity that Lychburg was built to feed.
The source material is very clear that it's not good or evil, not superior, not inferior. It's just other. It operates on a level where our concepts of self and identity are totally irrelevant.
Its food, its sustenance, isn't just energy. It feeds on the interplay of action and reaction and consequence.
Right. It craves intense interactions that generate the most narrative noise within this little pocket reality. And what's the most intense human interaction?
Murder.
Murder.
Wow.
It creates the maximum consequence, the maximum reaction, the most narrative friction for it to consume.
And it's so specific about how it does it. It takes over minds, like Norman Manley's.
And it doesn't just make them commit murder. It makes them become both the murderer and the murdered. Norman is later found as just charred skeletal remains.
Unbelievable.
The mind controls the whole process like some kind of abstract dance, just to make sure every single facet of the consequence, the shock, the investigation, the despair is maximized and consumed.
So imagine being the police chief in that town, Chief Tilson. He's just being crushed by this.
The situation is impossible. He's got multiple gruesome murders happening all at once across town. It looks like multiple killers.
But when they catch someone, the suspect has no motive, no memory of doing it, and all the crucial forensic evidence just vanishes.
And then impossible alibis and bogus leads just appear out of nowhere. Reality itself is sabotaging the investigation.
So the police are just running around in circles. They're not exactly in their right minds because the very structure they're trying to enforce law and order is constantly being undermined by the narrative engine that created them in the first place.
It's narrative sabotage as a physical law.
Which brings us to this fascinating meta-commentary that's actually built into the structure of the source material.
Oh, yeah. The 3 asterisks.
Right. They're not just a chapter break. The text explicitly says they represent a plunge over the lip of what topologists call a catastrophe curve.
Which is a real concept from mathematics. Catastrophe theory. It deals with systems where tiny, continuous changes can lead to sudden, huge, discontinuous effects.
Like stressing a bridge. You apply pressure slowly, 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 and it holds. And then it just snaps.
That snap is the jump over the lip. It's a fundamental switch between two completely different states, and the author uses that to mirror the reality of Lychburg.
The world is discontinuous. It's full of these abrupt fractures in time and space.
Whether it's the TARDIS suddenly appearing or the Driverama screen momentarily turning into, like, complex organic shapes.
Or just the whole environment stuttering between the 1960s and the 1990s.
Yeah, Lychburg is constantly flipping over the lip of its own catastrophe curve. It's like a story where the editor is tearing out pages, pasting in random bits from other books, and then demanding the characters pretend the plot makes sense.
The novel structure becomes a character in the chaos.
It's a brilliant device. But to understand why any of this is happening, we have to look away from the abstract mind for a second and look at the very concrete, very terrifying men who built the cage in the first place.
Exactly. This failure of subjective physics leads us right to the history of the Golgotha Project. Section 8. And the Cold War paranoia that started it all.
What's fascinating here is, well, it's tracing the development of this Cold War charms race.
Right. We're in the early 1960s. Peak tension. The Soviets have the bomb, the arms race is hot, and the U.S. government is desperate for any edge they can get.
And that desperation leads them down some profoundly dark paths that defy conventional science.
So the source details the creation of Section 8, this clandestine group, and their job is to investigate things that just shouldn't exist. Anything that defied known physics but might give them a strategic advantage.
And this wasn't just, speculative sci-fi for them. It was driven by a real fear that the Soviets might already be ahead of them in some kind of supernatural arms race.
And the whole thing was rooted in these horrific historical events. The source material says that Section 8 was using discoveries and data recovered from liberated Nazi death camps.
Now, we should pause here and just state for you, the listener, that the source material uses these extremely dark, fictionalized historical points to build its story. Our job is just to report impartially on this fictional history that the source creates for the Golgotha Project. We are not endorsing or validating any of these concepts.
Understood. So the documents they get their hands on include notes from Albert Speer about the practical functions of sacred geometry and state architecture.
The idea that the shape of a building could be used to amplify energy or belief. And even more disturbing, they had footage that supposedly showed Joseph Goebbels levitating a full 3 inches off the ground.
Using materials derived from ritually murdered victims.
The implication was terrifying. The possibility that magic might actually work was suddenly, in the eyes of these strategists, a strategic necessity.
The nuclear race was expensive. Mutually assured destruction wasn't a great outcome. But if the enemy could use occult forces on the cheap, the U.S. had to catch up.
So the ultimate goal of the Golgotha Project, which means place of skulls, was audacious. They wanted to consciously use magical processes to open a portal between Earth and another world.
And the force they would use to do it was directed, concentrated human belief.
So how do you pick a test site for something like that? They needed a controllable, isolated environment.
And the selection process was this chilling mix of bureaucracy and black magic.
They literally took a needle, sanctified with arcane guidance rituals, and just stuck it into a map near a geographically isolated town, and that town was Lychburg.
The implementation was so slow and methodical, it's terrifying. Section 8 specialists moved in, but they pretended to be conducting a long, comprehensive marketing survey.
It's the perfect cover story. It lets you into every home, into every mind.
And then they start systematically transforming the population, using subliminal mass conditioning and operant conditional brainwashing.
They weren't just changing political views. They were redefining fundamental reality for these people.
The whole population was being engineered to, when given a certain stimulus, act, think, and most importantly, believe with absolute certainty in whatever scenario their controllers wanted.
And if you didn't go along with it...
The source is very clear. Any intransigent members, the people who started talking about government mind control or pod people, they were summarily excised.
They were building a human engine of faith.
Right. They figured if they could get everyone to believe in demons, for instance, then maybe demons would actually appear.
But there was a problem, a big one. The population could be made to believe, absolutely, but the number of actual physical demons showing up was...
Zippo.
They needed a way to translate the belief, the psychological certainty, into a physical manifestation, a portal.
And this is where the tech comes in. Section 8's technology, decades ahead of its time, converging with this deep mysticism.
They took key people in the town and implanted them with superconductive transceivers.
This was restricted tech, way beyond anything on the public market, and it was linked directly to some kind of mystical focal point, an artifact.
The source is a bit vague on what it was, a piece of the true cross, an ancient sword, something like that. But its job was to be the antenna, the center point to channel the psychic force of the entire town's belief.
So, after 3 years of work, the site is ready. They stream the command code images to the population, images chosen for maximum cultural impact on the American psyche.
The opening of the gates of hell.
And the result was an immediate, catastrophic failure.
The doctor, when he analyzes it later, he realizes it was inevitable. You can't just link two quantum state vectors, our reality and whatever other dimension, without a massive, uncontrolled energy exchange.
Colonel Hasterman, one of the project leads, he confirmed they did open a rift. For a moment, it worked. But then, he says, things went haywire.
Something from a completely different dimension impacted the rift they'd made. It was like a metaphysical car crash in hyperspace.
Crowley, the other occultist, describes what he saw. A dome of alchemical light, vitreous gem-like, and it was just consuming everything around it.
And inside the light, there was an entity screaming and writhing, and it gave off this palpable sense of an evil so pure and so vast, it was just beyond human comprehension.
It was inimical to life.
Yeah.
Negation. Pure negation.
And this globe of pure negation eventually contracts, and what it leaves behind is the Lychburg discontinuity. A 5-mile half-globe just scooped cleanly out of the bedrock, the inside shone like a mirror.
And floating in the center was this unidentified, mirror-bright sphere.
So the Golgotha Project worked. They used belief to create a portal, but they lost control instantly, and they created this contained pocket of collapsed reality, the larder, the place that would eventually sustain the mind.
And the chaos they unleashed, it didn't stay put, it spread. Which is why we now have to jump forward, or maybe sideways, to a completely different timeline and a different doctor. So we shift abruptly to the fourth Doctor in Romana, and their TARDIS is already in a really weird situation.
Yeah, it's trapped out of time by this entity called Wubulk the High Councilman. He's basically a cosmic bureaucrat from Gallifrey.
And the Doctor and Romana are caught in this static, crystalline structure where time has just stopped working.
But the Doctor has a notoriously short attention span for these big, abstract Gallifreyan problems.
Right. He gets a distress call, a desperate one, from an old friend, Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart.
Yeah.
And his priorities just instantly shift.
He completely dismisses Wubulk's warnings about reality tearing itself apart. He just says, with that classic scarf-quarreling confidence, there's always one of those to deal with, and this one can damned well sort itself out for a change.
The Brigadier's trouble is more important than the end of everything.
Instantly. So they land the TARDIS in its police box form right in the middle of the unit barracks workroom.
And Romana, being a product of the Academy, is immediately just appalled by the mess.
She sees the room as a disaster. It's filled with complicatedly breadboarded electronics that her trained eye saw could never work, and all these strange arrays of twisted glass tubing.
The Doctor, as Dr. John Smith, has basically stolen everything from paper clips to TVs to build this computational data field. It looks like junk, but it somehow performs these impossible calculations.
And the chaos isn't just in the lab. The barracks are already under attack. This is where we meet Catherine Delbane. She's an agent from dystopia.
Disruptive investigation, special tactical operations, provisional internal affairs.
A mouthful, yeah. She's been sent to UNIT to figure out its secrets.
And she witnesses the whole invasion, these swift, black-clad figures using an anesthetic spray.
And that's a key detail. They're not using lethal force. They're not trying to destroy UNIT. They're there to capture someone.
They want the Brigadier.
Exactly. He holds all the vital secrets. So Benton and Lethbridge Stewart, they try to cover it up, and it's almost comical how bad they are at it.
Just flimsy lies to try and deflect Delbane.
They start talking about damn Sicilians bringing in arms and some business trip to Haiti where they killed for the proper kind of fetishes. Just Pulp Fiction nonsense.
But she's highly trained. She sees right through it. She knows the attack was surgical. It was targeted.
The attack was orchestrated by a man named Crowley. Delbane knows him from a rival department, the Provisional Department of Special Branch. But he's just a host.
He's actually a key occultist from the original Golgotha Project. He's working with Hasterman and U.S. Section 8.
Right. And Crowley had used Delbane's presence as his cover story. He claimed, one of my operatives was in danger, so my department had to step in.
It just shows how deeply the remnants of the Golgotha Project were embedded in the government, using these little bureaucratic turf wars to hide their cosmic agenda.
So once he's free, the Doctor starts tracking the Brigadier. And he can't use normal unit equipment, so he uses this amazing method, conceptual data field analysis.
This is pure Time Lord deduction. He's not looking at forensics. He's looking at the patterns of the world.
Yeah, he takes in all these tiny data points. A late school bus, the purchasing habits of the attackers, a sudden shift in pedestrian flow, and he uses that to figure out not just where they went, but where they wanted people to think they went.
It's like seeing the music behind the notes.
And through that, he quickly realizes they set a false trail. They tried to draw units' attention to the London Docklands, this place of ersatz finery, hoping to waste their time.
The real target, the real nexus point, was somewhere else entirely.
And while the doctor's on the real trail, we get back to Delbane. And this is where we get the incredible introduction of these competing abstract entities.
After her bosses dismiss her, she is holding her service revolver, and this completely alien thought just pops into her head.
You do not need a pistol to defeat these minions. You simply need your word of power.
And she knows instantly that thought is not hers.
It triggers this memory, this thought about why paranoid schizophrenics so often believe they're being controlled by external forces. It's the sane part of the brain trying to logically explain a thought that could not possibly have come from inside. She realizes there's a passenger in her mind.
So when she confronts one of the attackers,
Yeah.
her hand just drops the gun. Her lips start moving on their own.
And she starts uttering this incredible word of power. Amarathma ne dasamoratramoli damon suratmanakat.
The anesthetic spray hits her, and she collapses. But her consciousness goes somewhere else, this blindingly bright marble cavern.
And her flesh transforms. It becomes metallic and mercurial, streaming from her bones. She shatters the floor. Her new form is a perfectly sculpted, mirror-bright chrome entity. Jarkabeth. The source says she's effectively immortal, operating on a timescale so vast she can afford to be kind.
And this entity, Jarkabeth, took over Delbane's body for one reason.
To fight the entity that had possessed Crowley? The mind. Continuity. It was trying to reclaim something that Jarkabeth believed was its own property.
So this just completely changes the stakes. It's not a Cold War skirmish anymore. It's not a kidnapping.
No. It's a battle between cosmic, abstract forces using human hosts, and UNIT and the TARDIS crew are caught right in the middle. The Golgotha Project didn't just open a door for the mind. It basically sent out an invitation to every other hungry entity in the neighborhood. So the stage is set for this massive showdown and the ultimate collapse of the Lychburg reality.
The Doctor and Romana, they're following the true trail, the one the conceptual data field found, and it leads them to the nexus point.
Right, back towards the Lychburg discontinuity, the mirror crater. And Romana, with her, deep academic understanding of Gallifreyan physics, she discovers this massive paradox at the center of it all.
The discontinuity was already a singularity, a contained pocket of collapsed reality.
But it had been catastrophically destabilized because another TARDIS had materialized inside it, the Second Doctor's TARDIS.
Which the source calls particularly decrepit and ineptly repaired.
Yeah, right. So that early bumbling Time Lord created a singularity inside of another singularity, and it's threatening to just unravel everything.
So they're in an impossible spot. They can't get in, they can't get out, they can't fix it from the outside.
So Romana comes up with the solution. She decides to commit what she coolly calls a violation of 15,423 fundamental laws of physics.
Of course.
They have to access the trapped singularity by pulling another version of their own TARDIS from a different point on its timeline.
It's the ultimate temporal paradox. They're not just time traveling, they're using the time machine itself as a multidimensional key to unlock a paradox.
It is the Time Lord equivalent of pulling a second rabbit out of the same hat while the hat is currently on fire and melting reality.
Okay, so while they're doing that, the confrontation is happening in Hangar 18, the U.S. facility used by Hosterman and Crowley.
Crowley is now fully possessed by the mind, continuity, and it reveals its plan. It's got the Brigadier and Romana, and it's going to use them as bargaining chips to get access to the Fourth Doctor's TARDIS.
Which it calls the Magic Cabinet.
Right. The entity knows the TARDIS is the only thing that can navigate or collapse its manufactured world.
And Romana's response is just a masterclass in buying time with technical bluster. The mind challenges her to explain how the TARDIS works.
So she just launches into this completely incomprehensible explanation about Masonic collapse of the interstitial mesh into what is rather colorfully, I'm afraid, called the walrus mode.
The walrus mode.
The walrus mode. She's just rattling off terms like the reciprocating Brantis-Wankel ambulator and the polyhelical overload, and then says this is all just in layman's terms.
And it works. The mind is momentarily confused, not because any of it is real.
It's mostly nonsense, yeah. But the sheer volume and certainty of the language creates enough narrative friction to confuse the entity that feeds on narrative consistency.
And in that moment, the physical battle starts. Jorakabeth, in Delbane's body, confronts the mind in Crowley's body.
And Crowley's human form is failing. The entity inside is simply too big for the host. The body is stretching and warping.
The final, decisive move isn't from a cosmic entity or a Time Lord. It's from a profoundly human military man, the Brigadier.
He just relies on concrete, human-level action, a physical impulse these abstract beings have totally forgotten about. He just grabs the mangled, floating body of Crowley.
That simple physical act of grabbing him.
It causes the huge immaterial entity inside to have a momentary cognitive collapse. It exposes its true self for just an instant, and in that instant, Jorakabeth strikes, unleashes its word of power with devastating force.
Okay, so now we switch timelines again. Back inside Lychburg with the second Doctor, Victoria, and Jamie.
They've found the engine room, the control center for all of Lychburg, and it's hidden behind the massive Driverama movie screen.
And behind the screen, they find the controller. It's a monstrosity.
Yeah, it's described as rat-like, but with 15 elongated, jointed, spider-like legs. And it's scuttling all over these console controls. The Doctor immediately calls it the Woprat controller.
This is the source, the animal intelligence running the whole show,
Yeah.
the minion.
And Victoria, who is irrationally terrified of both rats and spiders, she screams as the creature lunges at her with these fang-like, extensible teeth.
And that scream, that raw human fear, is the crucial moment.
It is. The creature rocks back violently, and as it lunges, it rips the connection wires from its own head.
That physical break, caused by a purely emotional reaction, opens the dimensional occlusion.
This accidental intervention, the Woprat losing control, is the crucial element. It's what allows the Second Doctor's track TARDIS to finally be accessed and stabilized by Romana's maneuver.
And the mind, which was using this secondary consciousness, a minion named Dibley, to manage things outside.
It feels Dibley's death completely, catastrophically. The source says it wasn't an abstract loss. It was like having a cup of hot coffee thrown in its face.
This immediate, non-abstract pain drives it all but mad. All the grand plans are gone. In its final agony, it tries to tear a hole in the world to hide, and it smashes the TARDIS avatar on the ground in a final futile rage.
The world is collapsing. And in this moment of just sublime Time Lord self-congratulation, the Fourth Doctor and Romana just emerge from under the console where they were hiding.
They were there the whole time.
They followed them in. And the Fourth Doctor just happily notes that the whole thing was sorted out incredibly ingeniously.
He says their only job was to open the door to let you in for a grand total of 2 minutes before you run straight out again. The collapse was achieved, the timelines converged and separated.
And Dr. San, watching from the Golgotha command post, sees the end. The 5-mile mirror crater begins to transform. It collapses into a small blue box.
And then a pyramid, then an hourglass.
And then, for no reason at all, a ridiculous purple dinosaur, and then it just stops. And the screaming stops. Silence.
So the world is saved.
Yeah.
But the cleanup is, well, it's anything but clean. What happens when a collapsing pocket universe, one built on lies, returns to its original spot?
The legacy of Lychburg is maybe the most counterintuitive part of this whole thing.
Section 8 goes to investigate the ruins. They're expecting a 5-mile crater.
But instead, they find a small, unassuming city. And here's the paradox of it all. This city had more than 200,000 people in it.
Which is 50,000 more than the original experimental population they started with.
It's like the self-referential reality in its effort to seem real, just spontaneously generated extra people. And when the reality collapsed, those people, the extra 50,000, were suddenly real. They were confused, but totally unharmed.
So the original cover-up plan is totally unworkable now. You can't just excise 50,000 new confused Americans.
No, so they were just allowed to collect their things and dissolve into the great anonymous mass of Middle America to go find new lives, new realities.
And what about the people who engineered this whole mess and the entities who fought over it?
Their individual fates are this strange mix of high fantasy and just quiet domesticity.
Dr. San, the Section 8 guy who watched the Purple Dinosaur show.
He now teaches traditional weaving at a small arts and crafts college in Minnesota. He is completely detached from hard sciences, from mysticism. He's just weaving a new, quiet reality for himself.
Colonel Hasterman, on the other hand, had a much more ignominious end.
Yeah, since he was eaten by his own minions, his molecules were just swept up for recycling from the TARDIS floor, mixed in with the decomposed minions that ate him.
He was reduced to floor sweepings.
An inglorious, highly generalized end for a man who tried to weaponize divinity.
And finally, Catherine Delbane is released.
The Jerkabeth entity, being effectively immortal, could afford to be kind, so it just left. Delbane is returned to herself with no memory of any of it. The possession, the battle, the chrome body, all gone. She just gets to live out her life, however real that life might ultimately be.
So this universe-shaking event just ends with weaving, floor dust, and amnesia.
But there is one last detail, a crucial one that ties all this cosmic chaos back to personal responsibility.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it says so much about what it means to protect reality and the hubris that requires.
Victoria, after the whole ordeal, she finds the second Doctor in the TARDIS closet engaging in this profound act of self-punishment.
He's not sulking. He's writing lines.
Yeah. Stacks of paper, covered in this tiny, neat handwriting. He's hanging by his knees from a coat rail, meticulously writing the same sentence over and over.
I must not, through my own carelessness and conceit, allow the deaths of innocents that can in any way be prevented.
He's punishing himself for the temporal breach that made Romana's maneuver necessary, for the initial chaos of their arrival. He knows that his own ego, his arrogance and disabling safety features or flying badly, that's what destabilized the singularity in the first place.
Which points to this ultimate paradox of practice for him. I mean, what does it mean that even the protectors of reality have to continuously punish themselves for the secondary chaos they cause?
The Time Lord's arrogance, his conceit. That's the crucial, almost human flaw that threatens to undermine everything.
So the repair process always has to start with this self-reflection, this correction.
It really leaves you wondering, when your sphere of influence is literally infinite, where do you draw the line between necessary confidence and dangerous conceit? And if every big fix requires breaking 15,000 laws and then doing personal penance, are the abstract entities really the biggest threat? Or is it the protector's own uncontrollable ego?